Okay, I'm just giving you a little bit of warning, Jess. If you suddenly hear loud banging and if it seems like it sounds like Armageddon here, that's because what we saw in Queensland has now just reached me where I am in New South Wales, and the hail has come, there's thunder and lightning. So I'm just basically hoping that, the house stays standing, because not all houses in this area have stayed standing today, which is bad.
Geez, I don't envy you. I mean, as you saw, it's obviously been pretty bad here, but no hail at my house, thankfully.
Well, look, let's be grateful for small mercies. And on that note, let's get on with the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our post-play review show for Sporting News Australia. I'm joined by Jess Jonassen. We're managing to stay dry, at least. It wasn't the case at Metricon Stadium, which is just a real bugger, isn't it? So much anticipation for this test match, Jess, and to sort of only kind of get that first full session and then part of a second session underway is just a bugger, really.
I know it's sort of any game of cricket that has rain sort of impacting it is never fun, but something like this, which such an iconic game, and like you said, the build up to it, 15 years since India and Australia last played a test in the women's game, and unfortunately for this first day to be marred by the rain, but thankfully, obviously, over the next couple of days, play can start half an hour earlier. So fingers crossed the weather is fine for the rest of the game and we can make up those overs and hopefully force a result either way.
Yeah, well, one can only hope. We will talk about that and the situation that lies ahead. If you're joining us live and you've got a question or a comment that you'd like to make, please do just drop it into the live chat, and we'll do our best to get to as many as we possibly can. But let's get into it. First up, I guess, Jess, the big story of the morning was that there were debutantes just everywhere. There were caps being handed out all over the place. It was quite something to be seen. There were tears, there were hugs, there were smiles. It was a really emotional morning with a lot of new faces.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a total of 6 in the whole game, 2 in the Indian camp and 4 in the Australian camp. So, it's sort of cap presentations and debuts are always really special moments to be a part of. And I think actually as well, it might have been Elise Perry's 250th appearance for Australia today. So you put that on top of the multiple cap presentations and I mean obviously you see there Mitchell Stark has been in the setup with the Australian girls for this series, so I think he was able to present a cap. Shelley Nitschke presented a cap, and our captain Meg Lanning did as well, and also Elise. So it's always such a special moment, and I think we probably saw, I know we'll touch upon it in a little bit, but we probably saw the nerves of all those debutantes come out to play sort of today in that in this first day.
Yeah, well, we certainly did see some nerves from the Australians. It was a great start for India. Let's face it, Smriti Mandhana and Shafali Verma got things off to a brilliant start for them. But let's also talk about, before we talk about Smriti in particular, let's talk about the Australian lineup there. Of course, you're not there. Megan Schutt's not there. They really struggled with their lines and their lengths to the Indian bowlers early on, and there were also some uncharacteristic fielding errors as well from the Australians. What did you put all of that down to?
Yeah, well, I think obviously the Australians will be very disappointed with their fielding efforts, and I think we obviously saw at the back end of the ODI series that some poor fielding sort of came into both sides. So it was going to be something that both teams were wanting to rectify sort of leading into this test. But I think we can't count out the fact that it's a pink ball. it's in a new stadium as well. Even though the teams would have had a brief sort of field or catch under lights there, it is actually quite difficult to pick up the pink ball in those red seats at Metricon Stadium. But at the same time, some of them, I think Meg Lenning's chance off Sophie Molyneux was a real sort of, that would have been a real tight one that came very quickly. But yeah, obviously the one of Annabelle Sutherland on her debut, she nine and a half times out of 10 she's taken that. And yeah, it was just unfortunate on in that moment. She probably slightly took her eyes off the ball a little bit, but it does take a little bit of adjusting to the different coloured balls. And I think there's a question in the comments there in relation to that it does take that little bit of time. And the girls have been training with the pink ball, but yeah, sometimes when it's not something we're used to in the women's game. We don't play test match cricket a lot, let alone day-night test match cricket. So yeah, it was a shame for the Aussies, and I think in the longer format, you just can't make those sort of mistakes because they won't necessarily come around too often. I think probably the worst thing for the Australian team is that all of those chances were off the bat of Shafali Verma, that Smriti Mandhana did not give them a chance in that time. So, and obviously she's looking very ominous at the crease at the moment.
Yeah, we're going to talk a bit more about her as well. And that comment you mentioned was from Kaushik Arunagiri, I think. I hope I've got that right, Kaushik, about is the pink ball tough to catch? There were also mistakes with the ground fielding as well. But yeah, it looks like, it is difficult. And I guess these are the things that happen when you switch to a format that you never get to sort of play really, and then a ball that you almost never get to hold. So that was difficult. What about the bowling, though? I mean, we know Elise Perry, I've spoken to Megan Shute quite a bit about the adjustments in her run-up. She's stripped it back bare. But you've got so much inexperience in this whole Australian attack with the new bowlers coming in, Stella Campbell and Darcy Brown in particular, with them bowling for the first time in a test match. Just what do you think was the sort of situation with the bowlers there? Was it nerves? They seemed to suddenly switch about halfway through the session and start bowling fuller, at which point they started to dry up the runs as well with the introduction of the spinners.
Yeah, I reckon it was probably a combination of nerves at the start. Obviously, the build up to the match, the fact that it was a test match, so many debutants as well, all of those factors come into play, and also the pitch as well. That there was comments throughout the whole day today that the pitch was a bit slower than people sort of anticipated based on the look of it. That obviously had a green tinge, a lot of grass, and that probably would have, as well as the weather, would have been a factor in Meg choosing to bowl once she won the toss. And I actually think it's still the correct decision to have made, that the bowlers just didn't nail their areas early on. They leaked runs both sides of the wicket, which is tough in any format to defend or to build pressure. And the lack of consistency of building back-to-back dot balls, it just didn't allow the Australian bowlers to build that genuine pressure. And it wasn't until, like you mentioned, that the spinners came on and actually worked in tandem. I think there was a really great bowling partnership between Talia McGrath and Sophie Molyneux, and then Ash Gardner came on as well. So it's sort of the fact that Smriti Mandhana was about 56 off 51 balls and then ended up 70 off 112 goes to show that if the bowlers put the ball in the right area enough times, that pressure can be built. And unfortunately, with the rain, it sort of, yeah, it could have made a difference if that stayed away. That yeah, it was a little bit disappointing to see the Australian bowlers sort of miss their areas early. Considering, I guess, as a captain as well, if you win the toss and decide to bowl, you sort of want your bowlers to hit the ground running from ball one. And I mean, the Indian batters still had to play good shots to those deliveries as well. But yeah, it was just a bit unfortunate that the Aussies didn't start off as well as they probably would have liked.
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned her a few times already because it's impossible not to mention Smriti Mandhana on a day like today. It almost seemed, for me, I looked at one point, well, I was watching the whole thing, but I felt like I looked and she was on about 16, and then it felt like it was the next ball that she was on 50. It did, the runs came so easily. She so beautiful to watch. She has got out a few times, sort of playing out in front, the ball that's a bit outside of off stump. But it felt like, I don't know, her strength and her weakness kind of lies in that area. And Australia seemed to be trying to get to that weakness. But she did just enough to sort of get through those difficult periods. And she just didn't look like getting out, even though she played a few false shots.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is like I mentioned before that even the chances that Australia missed, none of those were off Smriti Mandhana's bat. So even though she mistimed a few shots or whatnot, they were still relatively in control. That yes, she sort of slices a little bit occasionally through that cover point region, but more often than not, her shots are well and truly controlled, and she's probably one of the best batters at the moment, or probably one of the best batters ever to be able to pick up length so quickly. That she's so strong off the back foot as well, and probably has one of the most elegant cover drives that I've ever seen. And I guess I'm probably a little bit biased because she's a lefty and so am I. So I love the look of real classy left-handed batters, but she's so good off both the back foot, which really puts the pressure on bowlers, that balls don't necessarily have to be that short. And I think like she hit Talia McGrath for 6 and hit multiple boundaries there as well. But just her placement and the way that she just timed the ball, that this is probably this is I mean, we need to play more test match cricket, because to see the likes of Smriti Mandhana playing that way and in a format that really suits her, I think like she's really good at the white ball format as well, because she sort of has had to be to make a career of it in the women's game. But imagine what the likes of Smriti can do in a test match arena. It's sort of similar to someone like Elise Perry for the Australian setup, that the batting is just well and truly suited to the longer format. And I mean, it's all well and good. I love to watch her bat as long as I'm not bowling down the other end.
Well, let's put you on the spot then. If you were bowling in this test, what would be your plan to get her out?
Look, I'd probably just look to try and bowl really tight lines to her, similar to what Sophie Molyneux has done in this test match so far. That Sophie's sort of kept it really tight and really contained. That I'd still give my protection sort of out on that square leg boundary to combat the sweep, or if there's any turn. But just trying to make the batter play, well, particularly Smriti, make as many decisions as possible, and try and get her to play across the line a little bit, or maybe a cheeky little caught in mid-wicket, trying to manoeuvre it into that leg side gap. But she's probably one of the hardest batters to bowl to, particularly as a left arm spinner. You're turning into the left-hander, so it's quite challenging. But I think the beauty of test match cricket is you can try plans for a number of overs and then change, whereas in the shorter formats, you obviously a lot of the time you have to change plans every single ball. That you can't really build and really sort of grind the batter down.
Yeah, just a couple of questions that are coming in that I'll put to you. Imran Khan, I don't know if it's the Imran Khan. I mean, I'm sure you are the Imran Khan, wherever you are the Imran Khan. Ask, can Sutherland bowl? If yes, then where is she?
She can bowl, yes. Her very first test match over was actually a maiden. So I think sometimes it's a blessing and a curse to have so many bowling options. Like Meg has so many options at her disposal. Sometimes it's hard to make sure you're, I guess, utilizing the right person at the right time, or give people the opportunity at a different time. So I think obviously the rain potentially played a factor in terms of and probably Australia's start with the ball as well, to be fair, that I don't think anyone, including Meg, would have anticipated that the spinners would be coming on in the 16th over on day one of a test match. So I wouldn't be surprised to see her a lot more with the ball in the first session tomorrow.
Well, we'll see there. A question from Ananya Upendran. Hello, Ananya, who asks a good question. What's the ideal colour of seats in cricket stadiums?
Oh, that's really hard because sort of you got to consider both the red ball, pink ball now, and a white ball. So I think probably like a blue, like a not necessarily a deep blue, but sort of like a middle sort of blue color.
A
If
duck
that
egg
makes
blue,
any
perhaps.
sense.
So maybe a duck egg blue. We should put this
Maybe.
out to stadium designers all around the world. Please
But
make
I
your
think
seats
you can't
duck egg
like you can't have it too pastel and too light because then it's too
blue.
close to a white ball. But then you can't have it too deep either because then with a red ball, it's sort of hard because like with a darker background, it makes a red ball harder to see as well. So you sort of got to be somewhere in the middle with the blues, maybe.
Yeah, it's a very intriguing point and something I guess that we don't think about too often. Let's bring in our fourth topic because we've got a couple of questions that are related as well. Rain, go away. Yeah, as we have mentioned, but there is a couple of people sort of asking questions, like one from Rahul Gopalakrishnan. Rahul Gopalakrishnan asks, are the rain-affected matches like today the main reason we need to consider 5-day test matches for women's game too? What are your thoughts? I mean, my thoughts are we should have 5-day tests, but you know, for women. But what are your thoughts as a player? Do you want 5-day tests?
Yeah, I love them. I think probably historically as well, we've seen in the women's game, there's been a lot more draws in matches as opposed or no results as opposed to wins or losses. So I think like an extra day or even an extra half a day a lot of the time would have actually forced a result in a lot of those games. And I think we spoke earlier, Mel, off air that potentially if you didn't have 5-day test matches, at least having a reserve day that if events like this and rain affected days where essentially 2 whole sessions are wiped out, that when you're already 1 day shorter than the men's test matches, it makes it very challenging because both teams want to play an attacking brand of cricket and both teams want to win, particularly in a multi-format series where you've got a point system. So the fact that there's so many points linked to a test match, it's silly if a team just tries to draw it because then it's sort of you set yourself up to. Obviously, we know T20 cricket is the last format in this series, and that can go either way on any given day. So I think as a player, I guess a short answer is yes, I would love 5-day tests. But I just gave you my long answer. So
oh, that's okay. We can have the long answer as well. And I think the other thing in that as well, it's not just about the rain either. Rahul, it's about too often women get pretty ordinary dead tracks to play test matches on. We certainly saw that at Taunton. We've seen it at North Sydney Oval. We've seen it at Canterbury, at Wormsley, certainly in the years that I've been covering tests. And then it becomes even harder in 4 days to actually for them to take 20 wickets in that. I guess at least if you had another day, that might help a little bit as well, do you think?
yeah, I think too, we sort of also have to take into account that in the men's test matches, they only have to bowl a maximum 90 overs in a day. They very rarely get there from over 8 issues, but for us, we have to bowl 100 overs in a day. So essentially, yeah, you're bowling an extra 10 overs each day. So it's an extra 40 overs, which in essence is an extra session and a half. So you are basically still playing 4.5 days based on the overs. However, I think the added element is the fact that you have to go away for a night, another night, and then come back again. that then truly makes it a proper test. But I think throwing a spanner in the works a bit, I think if I had to choose between having more bilateral multi-series formats with 4-day tests or less tests but 5 days, I would choose the more multi-series formats and bilateral series. So sometimes it also could potentially become a planning and whatever issue as well. So yeah, there's always so many extra factors to consider.
Yeah, and you've brought in one of my biggest bugbears about the blokes and their slow over rates. At least the women get on with it, man. They don't muck around. They get in. They get involved. It's a thing of beauty. Arpan has asked, said you played and covered enough cricket to answer this question. Do you think a result is still possible with 3 days to go? Bearing in mind there could be a bit of rain around again tomorrow.
I think the fact that it's a day-night test adds a whole nother element to it. We didn't really get to see the conditions in their entirety today, purely because obviously we saw in the ODIs up in Mackay that as soon as the lights took full effect, the ball was swinging left, right, and centre. So we didn't really get that opportunity to see how that would react. So I think for that reason, I think it's still well and truly possible and well and truly on the cards. That I think a lot of it will come down to how the Australian bowlers come out first thing tomorrow. Obviously not first thing in the morning, but in the first session. So I think it's still possible, but that a lot of things. Some teams, it'll definitely have a lot more tactical components to it. The fact that we've lost sort of a whole day, but I think that probably also was a factor in Meg deciding to bowl when she won the toss as well, because seeing that the wicket was so green initially as well, and seeing the weather, that probably thought that the wicket wasn't going to deteriorate a lot over the 4 days. So that way it would have given them a clear idea if it came to the fourth innings of what they had to chase and how long they still had left in the game to do so.
There's a couple of people talking about who's going to be the X factor, I guess, for the Australians. So Rohan Sharma says, who will Australia turn to tomorrow to get a breakthrough?
Yeah, well, I think like Sophie Molyneux and Ash Gardner have bowled with some really great pressure, but I can't wait to see the introduction of Georgia Wareham.
Yeah.
So yeah, the fact that we still haven't seen her either. Also Talia McGrath has bowled really well, and she's beat the bat a fair bit as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if she gets hopefully something caught in the cordon early on or caught behind. But I think Georgia Wareham will actually have a bit of an impact, sort of with the ball potentially skidding on a little bit, that she might sneak a few LBWs and bolds in there potentially.
Oh, well, there you go. We've got something to look out for tomorrow. We'll be looking out for Georgia Wareham coming in, few LBWs, couple of bolds in there as well, and then we'll be back here after the day's play to talk to you again, just to see if you're right, JJ. There's no pressure or anything like that, but we will remind you.
I might lose my state captaincy if I'm wrong.
I reckon you might be right. Well, let's see tomorrow. Hopefully we get a full day's play, and we'll be back here to talk about it with Jess tomorrow night as well. So save up your questions and do give us a like and subscribe to the channel if you can. And good luck with the weather up there, Jess. I'm still worried about the hail down here, but we'll see you tomorrow night.
Sounds good. I think you need more luck than me.
All right. See you later, guys. See you tomorrow. Enjoy the day.